It is time for Arthur Schwartz, the Food Maven. Arthur joins us on a Monday live here on Robin Hood Radio, and we also rebroadcast Arthur on the weekend and also during the week during our noontime hour. Good morning, Arthur.
Good morning. I guess I'm all over the place.
You are.
Yeah, but I stay in my kitchen, except to go food shopping and some other errands. Anyway,
your listeners
as you all know, I went to my nephew's house for Thanksgiving, although I did do a lot of cooking. I must say, I enjoyed cooking in his kitchen. It's one of these enormous... You got to do a lot of walking, but he's very well equipped and blah, blah. So one of the guests, a friend of my nephew and niece, is a woman who, she's a law professor, actually, and a third-generation Italian-American, but her family originally came from Bari, and then her mother, who does relate to things Barese. Her father claims to come from the north, but I forget what the surname is. It's unquestionably a southern surname. There's a lot of bigotry in Italy between North and South. Neither trusts the other for historic reasons and actual reasons. So, in any case, I said some disparaging things about Bari, although it is a really fascinating city. Bari is on the I guess that's the Adriatic coast. Is Puglia is the long, narrow region of Italy that we would think of as the stiletto heel of the boot. If Italy's a boot, it's the stiletto heel, and people in Puglia freely and proudly acknowledge the shape of their region and often refer to it as the California of Italy because of its shape. Anyway, Bari's right in the middle, and it's a city as well as a province of the region. And the first time I went to Bari has to be more than 20 years ago. And I've been a number of times, if not numerous times, and it has changed over the years. But let me say that Bari was in the news this week in the Times on the international page, and the headline was "A Crime of Pasta, but the suspects' lips are sealed." The suspects are these grandmothers who make Orecchiette at home in their kitchens and then sell it on the street to tourists and also to their other neighbors. I think, if you're not making Orecchiette, then and you're buying Orecchiette, you have a favorite person to buy it from. Like, could be your downstairs neighbor. In any case, some of the women who sell the Orecchiette on the street have been selling to restaurants, which is illegal. It's the same here. If you want to sell to a restaurant, you need an inspected kitchen, you need a permit, blah, blah. And it's probably just as, if not more, difficult in Italy to get all these things. So, what's it going to hurt if I sell 3 kilos of Orecchiette to the restaurant down the street? But they're after them. So anyway, at Thanksgiving, the woman from Bari, I said some disparaging things because Bari is known to be a den of thieves. And I even told the story about St. Nicholas, Santa Claus, whose remains are in Bari. And I couldn't remember the year, but in this New York Times piece on Sunday, they actually gave the year. I could have looked it up when I got home, but I didn't. I know the story so well. Here's the deal. The Barese in the 11th century, 1087, was a nowhere place. And in order to be a somewhere place in 1087, you had to have the remains of a saint. And so they went to Asia Minor, which is right across the sea, the Adriatic, and they stole the remains of St. Nicholas, who was a philanthropist. He was sainted. Should I tell the Santa story? Is everybody?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a time of the year for Santa's story.
Yeah. So anyway, they went to Asia Minor. They stole the remains. The remains are now in the Basilica of San Nicola, where I have been many times. In fact, we were trying to figure this out yesterday. Bob thinks it was 18 years ago that he was having back problems. And we went to visit the Basilica of San Nicola, and it's in the crypt downstairs are his remains buried underneath the flooring. But there's a window in the flooring, and it's all behind, beautiful iron gate, and they only open it for blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that day we were able to go view the remains of San Nicola and perhaps send him a prayer. So you have to get on your knees on the floor of the church, beautiful marble floor, and look inside, and you can see bones. And Bob asked for some help with his back, and sure enough, within a week, he was better. And this had been a chronic problem for a while, meaning, it was all the time. Anyway, he, of course, attributes this to San Nicola. So St. Nicholas was a philanthropist in Asia Minor, and the story goes, love saint stories, that he dropped little bags of gold coin or gold currency into the chimneys of these needy girls. And, of course, in legend, the coins fell into socks that were drying by the fire. Hence, we get the custom of putting socks on the fireplace at Christmas time, and also giving gifts, and also of Santa Claus, who was not at that time a rotund white guy with a gray beard and a red suit. He was a saintly-looking, dark-skinned, probably dark-skinned, sort of Turkish-looking guy. And, in fact, in the Basilica of San Nicola in Bari, they depict him with dark skin. And you see other images of him around southern Italy where he has dark skin. I can't say he has Negroid features. I've never seen an image with where he looked like he was Negro, but he was very dark skinned. Anyway, back to Orecchiette. I think most Americans at this point know what Orecchiette is, even if they can't pronounce it. It's a tough word, got to admit. And they're little circles of dough that are made. Now, when I tell you how they're made, you'll understand why they're that. With your thumb, and you take a little ball of dough, and you press it down with your thumb, and it's an orecchiette or orecchietto. I think one is masculine. Anyway, no, it must be because it's eh. Anyway, point is, it's usually a fresh pasta, meaning it's made with semolina flour and water, no eggs, and it's eaten, let's call it semi-dried, but you can dry them. And I buy here in Brooklyn, and in most, I think, good Italian markets, you'll find handmade orecchiette. You can tell that they're handmade because they're irregular, and they were dried, and they're terrific. They take a while to cook. Orecchiette is not a tender pasta, so just remember that. In fact, I have a bag right in front of me here of handmade ones. It's called La Bottega della Pasta. I'm not sure where I got this, but the bag says it takes 18 minutes to cook, and that's not exaggerating. It's not too long. It could be even 20 minutes because it is a chewy pasta, and it's made it's made without eggs, and it's made by hand, and blah blah. I buy actually fresh Orecchiette at my butcher, who sells Italian groceries as well as meat that isn't necessarily Italian. Although I do think he has some imported cold cuts. In any case, I buy a brand called, and you take a look. I think you should be able to buy anything online, they say, and I do know that these people have a website. The brand is I Sapori, which means the flavors, Sapori. E is the plural, the flavors, del Vallo. Del means of the, Vallo means, in this case, an actual valley, Vallo. It's the Vallo di Diana. And the Vallo di Diana is in Cilento, which is in the province of Salerno, which is where my cooking school used to be and where my friend Cecilia's agroturismo is, in Pestum. Pestum is the gateway to Cilento. Pestum is sea level, beaches, water buffalo, Greek temples, and then right after it, going south, you're hitting a mountainous area that's called Cilento. And what I buy there is, besides Orecchiette, they make fusilli, the real fusilli. The real fusilli is a pasta also just made with semolina flour and water that's formed on an iron rod, like the word fuselage, which is of a rifle, is a related word. Fusilli are in various lengths and actually slightly different shapes, depending in the South where they're made. These fusilli I would not have necessarily called calabresi, which they are on this package, but they are, because I don't know. And actually in Calabria, they often call fusilli macaroni, and even other names. What's the other one? I can't think of it, but I will. In any case, this company also makes sensational orecchiette. Now, how do I cook this? We were talking a few weeks ago about how every pasta shape has an appropriate condiment or sauce. And in the case of orecchiette, I would say the most classic combination is broccoli rabe with orecchiette. Here in the States, where we're a little obsessed with putting a lot of things in one bowl, we often have this as sausage and broccoli rabe. Sometimes in Italy you'll find a broccoli rabe that has some sausage in it, but not the way I see it here in Brooklyn, or actually in the Northeast, which is underdone broccoli and a lot of sausage mixed with the orecchiette. So the other day I made the fusilli, which is the same dough as the orecchiette, by the way, for lunch with not broccoli raw, but just broccoli. And a friend of mine who often visits at lunchtime but rarely eats, she sits here and drinks a glass of wine at the most. She said, I think I'm going to try some of this. And I gave her too much, knowing her appetite. And I said, you don't have to eat it all, or if you prefer, I'll just take off some before you start. And she said, no, put it down. She ate it all. And then left and asked me, how did you make that? And it's the simplest thing in the world. I steam the broccoli, and let me say I cut it into not really small flowerets, but it was sort of following the natural lines of the head of broccoli. And I like stems. We love stems, actually. Sometimes I think I like stems better than the tops. So I only buy the broccoli that has stems, cut off the bottom of the stem because that's woody and dried out, and peel the stems with a vegetable peeler, and then cut it into small pieces. I put that all in my collapsible steamer because it's the fastest, I think, and easiest way to cook a vegetable. And I cook it until it's tender, not until it's crisp tender, but until it's fully tender. In the meantime, or when I'm ready to later, I cook some garlic in oil. I just, with the heel of my hand, smash the cloves of garlic, maybe for a big pan full, a whole head of broccoli, two cloves of garlic. You just cut them in half if you don't like to smash with the heel of your hand. And then over low heat, nurse those cloves of garlic until they're tender, smushing them down a little bit here and there until when they start getting tender. You'll see that there'll be juices coming out of the garlic. Don't let it brown. I don't like to let it brown. So, in fact, you can do that ahead, and you've got this garlic-infused oil. If you want, you can take the garlic cloves out. I leave them in. Bob doesn't eat them. I do, sometimes. Sometimes I take them out at the very end. So, but I want the broccoli to cook with them a little bit. So that's it. And then when I have this nice, well-cooked broccoli, I put it in the pan with the oil, and I cook it some more. And I don't mind if it gets soft. And certainly in the case of broccoli rabe, after I boiled it, in that case I boil it in a lot of water because broccoli rabe gives off some of its bitterness if you do that. I boil it for 5 minutes and then cook it. And that's all it was the other day. It was just normal, American-style broccoli with these fusilli. And the fusilli are so satisfying. I used 250 grams, so that's what? It was less than half a pound. For 3 people, and it was plenty. So, and the orecchiette, they're the same. And when you buy them fresh, of course, they don't take 20 minutes, but they do take usually a little longer. So back to what's going on in Italy it's I don't know, must have been a very slow travel news, international news day, which wasn't yesterday, because they devoted an entire page in the Sunday Times main section to this story about Orecchiette made by grandmas in Bari, and points out, by the way, that Saint Nicholas, who we know as Santa Claus, is beside the patron saint of Bari. He is also, and I guess as Bob would say, he's the patron saint of bad backs. He's the patron saint of thieves. And even though I thought, after I told this friend of my nephew and nieces from Bari, whose family's from Bari, about the bad reputation of Bari, I was validated by the New York Times on Sunday, who said exactly the same thing. And I want to add to my story here, it's the only place in Italy that I have ever been mugged. I was right in front of the Basilica of San Nicola, not the same trip when Bob prayed for his back. He asked Santa Claus to help him with his back. Anyway, on that same trip, I had bought literally €5, which at the time was probably $6, at a street market, a small black Prada knockoff bag that had a strap, and I could wear it securely around my neck, I thought. Anyway, but at one point, we had a group with us, and Cecilia was leading the group back to our bus, and I was at the back of Bob and I were at the back of the group, herding them towards the bus, and that's what you have to do when you're a tour guide. And Bob said, "Oh, these guys on a motorcycle keep circling us." I said, "I'm not going to pay attention." Well, at that point, my bag, which had the strap had broken, I was clutching it like a clutch bag, and one of these guys jumps off the back of the motorcycle and tries to take my bag. And there was nothing in the bag of real value, meaning my money wasn't in my bag, my credit cards weren't in my bag, my passport wasn't in my bag. What was in my bag was my notebooks. And I was still, in those days, a real food hunter, adventurer. Recipes were in my bag. And some, other things of not great, value. So I fought for the bag. And I was later told what they really why they thought I must have money in that bag is because I was wearing New Balance sneakers, which at that point were extremely expensive in Italy. I don't know if they still are. I haven't bought a sneaker in Italy. But, I do know that my Italian friends often come here to buy. It's so funny. Italians coming to New York to buy shoes, and New Yorkers going to Italy to buy shoes. We both make great shoes, I guess. Anyway, we do make great sneakers here, and New Balances are very prized. So that was what got me into trouble. But it was in Bari. And so, by the way, Iris, my friend who lives in Rome, only last year emailed me from Bari to report that she was spending time in Old Bari and that they'd cleaned it up and there were no more thieves on the streets. So instead of thieves now, they have the Orecchiette Ladies. There's a particular street, too. If you go to Bari, well, I'm sure if you go to Bari, you can just ask, where's that street where all the ladies are selling their handmade orecchiette? And I bet you there are stores that sell them, too. And I'm sure that everybody is still cheating on this. What are you going to do to an 82-year-old woman who's trying to make ends meet by making pasta at home?
Not much.
I would love to have one down the street. And actually, we have a place. He's not an 82-year-old man. He's a relatively younger man, like maybe 50, who opened up a little pasta laboratory, as they call them in Italy, down the street from me. But I bought 2 products from him, and I thought they were terrible. Yeah, they were handmade. Yeah, they were fresh, but they were mealy dough, and I don't remember.
Hey, just because they're handmade and fresh doesn't mean they're going to taste good.
Yeah, exactly. And when people tell me it's homemade, I say, "Who's home?"
That's right. That's the biggest scoopy thing in the world.
Let me tell you, I had a neighbor in Cornwall who we loved dearly, but we dreaded when she asked us to come for dinner.
That's right.
Which she did very kindly because she knew that, whatever. It was very kind of her, but we dreaded it. And we just were thankful that she had a little dog and that she didn't see too well. So
the dog ate very well.
But that was homemade food.
That's absolutely true.
Fresh from her husband's garden.
It doesn't matter. Right. You got to know what to do
from
with the stuff.
From garden to table.
That's like saying.
But in between, you understand, the handling is all important.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's funny. I laugh at these farm-to-table places.
Well,
I went to one recently, and that bills itself as farm-to-table, and I said, well, I guess they, even though it's just November, I guess, even though it's November, their farm has an awful lot of produce still coming in.
No, they didn't say where the farm was located. They didn't say where the farm was located. It could be.
Yeah, exactly. Farm to table could mean from California to your table. It's a meaningless expression.
Oh gosh, don't you love it? That's the society we're in.
Yeah, well, in Italy, they have the same thing, except it's called zero kilometri, 0 kilometers. And technically, that the food should be coming from within a kilometer. That's not even a mile of the place that's serving it, which is ridiculous, totally. Unless you're actually on a farm where you're producing everything. But there is a place. I'm not going to mention the name. It's like one of the most famous places to eat in Italy right now, and they claim to be zero kilometri. They make a big deal about it. And I happen to know that they're buying their tomatoes from a place that's at least, 60 miles away.
That's miles, not kilometers. You see?
And miles, yeah. Kilometers, what is it, 80 kilometers?
Yeah. So
anyway, all right, so it's a rainy day.
Yeah.
Which usually I like to cook on rainy days. But as I have nothing in the house to eat, except orecchiette. Here's one. Here's what to eat when you think there's nothing in the house to eat. I'm now giving in for the winter and keeping frozen spinach in the house. And so spinach with garlic and oil and orecchiette and some grated whatever cheese you happen to have, although I would like pecorino on that. I will see. That's really delicious.
Well, you can do what I did yesterday. I made a chicken, and I got tons of great fat and stuff from the chicken.
Yeah.
So I put the chicken aside in the refrigerator. I made a pot of a chicken vegetable soup. I made I made a pot of pea soup, and I made a pot because I had 2 ham hocks that when I was doing that I was boiling them as well.
Well, you're well stocked there.
Well, I've got soup for the week. I've got and 3 different varieties of soup. So you can't beat that. You can't beat that.
No, you can't.
Yeah,
You
so.
can't. It keeps well. And yeah, so I usually cook on Sundays, but I did, but I didn't make anything that was going to for the week. I made it for the moment.
All right. Arthur.
So I have my orecchiette. Orecchiette means little ears.
All right. So you've got that.
Little ears, and I'm going to make it today if I don't leave the house, which is a possibility, with spinach.
All right. I'll speak to you again next week, Arthur.
Take care.
Take care. Arthur Schwartz, the Food Maven, here on Robin Hood Radio, robinhoodradio.com. On the web. Underwriting support for Arthur Schwartz, the Food Maven, John Andrews Restaurant on the Hillsdale Road in South Egremont, 413-528-3467. On the web, jarestaurant.com. Rubiners Cheesemongers and Grocers on Main Street in Great Barrington, 413-528-0488, rubiners.com. Hillsdale Home Chef, more information, 518-325-7000, hgshomechef.com.